We're seeing the sky here as it appears on the 7th day of the 7th month. Now, our planetarium computer program Stellarium is saying it's August 25th, but there are different kinds of calendars. In a lunar calendar, the time of the new moon is the first day of the month, and that's when this video is being recorded. So as the days go by, we can watch the moon appear to wax or appear to grow until it's like a half circle shape, what we call a first quarter moon, on the 7th day of the month. And in the Chinese lunar calendar, this is the 7th month, the 7th day of the 7th month, the night of sevens. There's a story about something special that happens on the night of sevens, and each character in the story can be found as a star in the sky. We've stepped back a little bit and zoomed out, so there's a big stretch of sky on your computer screen here, and we want to find the brightest star in the sky. Now, don't be fooled, that one is the moon. We've zoomed out far enough that the moon just looks like a bright splotch. And that one is Jupiter, Saturn there. Where's the brightest star? That one's pretty bright, but the brightest one of all is a star sky watchers call Vega. And we're going to call the star Vega the Weaver Girl star. The Weaver Girl is in love with the boy who watches the cows. And his star, the star that sky watchers call Altair, is the star for the boy who watches the cows. And the boy who watches the cows is in love with the Weaver Girl. In fact, she came down from the sky where she lives to stay with the shepherd boy. They got married and they had 2 children and lived for a while very happily together. This is a story from China, but when I bring up this story in the planetarium, visitors from all parts of Asia say that they tell this story where they come from. And there are different ways of telling it, but in all of them, something goes wrong. Some people say that these 2 were so happy together with their children that the boy who watched his cows stopped watching his cows, and the Weaver Girl stopped weaving. They neglected their duties. Another thing people say is that the parents of the weaving girl thought that the boy who watches cows isn't good enough for her. He's a boy who watches cows, and she's the goddess of all weavers. And so the parents of the weaver girl said they must be kept apart. This picture shows the father of the weaver girl creating a great silver river. Some stories have the mother creating the river. See if you can find the stars for the boy who watches the cow and for the weaving girl. There she is. She's the weaving girl, the bright star Vega. Altair is here, and you might see 2 tiny stars next to it. You can imagine that's the boy who watches the cows and his 2 children. Between them is the river of stars that's often called the Milky Way. You might see that if it's a very dark night and if you're away from city lights in a very dark place. If you can see the Milky Way, or if you can imagine the Milky Way, imagine that it is the great silver river that separates the 2 lovers. But the story's not over. On the 7th day of the 7th month, a flock of birds, magpies they are, come together. And this is what I like to imagine. So many magpies coming together over the great silver river that the boy who watches the cows and the weaving girl can climb on their backs as if it's a bridge of birds. And the 2 lovers meet on the 7th day of the 7th month, the night of sevens. I'll tell you one more thing about the Magpie Bridge. This is a lunar lander, the first one to land on the far side of the moon, not the dark side of the moon. You can see it's plenty bright there. In fact, every part of the moon gets its share of brightness and darkness, but the far side of the moon is where this lander has landed. And since it's on the far side from Earth, it can't send messages directly back to Earth. So there's another spacecraft, kind of like a bridge that it sends messages to, and that spacecraft sends messages back to Earth, and that bridge spacecraft has a name that means the Magpie Bridge, from the story of the Night of Sevens. So go out on a summer evening and find these two bright stars. When I'm looking for them, I look for three stars because they make a very recognizable triangle, the summer triangle. And I can imagine maybe that these stars are the birds flying down the Silver River to make the bridge that lets the two lovers see each other. And while you're at it, watch the moon go through its phases.